Friends of an Australian writer detained by China on suspicion of spying fear his deteriorating health means he could die behind bars. Yang Hengjun has again pleaded his innocence ahead of the third anniversary of his arrest. Here's Elaine Pearson, who's the Australia Director of Human Rights Watch. Good afternoon, Elaine. Thanks for your time. So how much do we know about Yang Hengjun's condition?
Well, this is the third anniversary of his detention, and we know that he has quite significant health problems that have been exacerbated by being locked up. He has kidney problems, he has high blood pressure, gout. He doesn't know whether to trust the medicine that he's being offered in prison, and he's being kept in a cell with a lot of other people in pretty cramped, quite horrible conditions.
So who's in charge of his medical care then?
Well, the Chinese prison authorities are in charge of his medical care. And, unfortunately, we know from other cases of Chinese citizens in prison that the medical care is very basic. And unfortunately, there's a long track record of human rights defenders that have died in Chinese custody. Indeed, the Nobel Prize winning laureate Liu Xiaobo died in 2017 of liver failure because of inadequate cancer treatment. And there are many, many others, Tibetans, Uyghurs, and other activists who have died in custody or shortly after being released.
And how are you getting information as to how he is?
His friends who are quite close to him have been providing updates to Human Rights Watch and to others. And, I think, on this anniversary, it's been 3 years. And I think, we've seen the release, for instance, of the two Canadians who were also detained around the same time. And I think there needs to really be more pressure on the Chinese government to be persuaded to release him, because we don't want to see, Yang Hengjun become someone who also dies in Chinese custody.
But relations, of course, between Australia and China have been tense for a while. Does this mean that it's been hard for Australian authorities to make contact with him to keep across his health?
Well, I think it is extremely difficult for Australian authorities to, stay in contact with him. They have had sporadic visits, but we do know that, for instance, when he had the one-day trial, in fact, Australian diplomats were prevented from attending that trial. So, this is a case that really epitomises all that is wrong with China's criminal justice system. And, this is a case of an Australian who is caught up in this, but there are many, many cases also of Chinese citizens who also bear the brunt of an unfair criminal justice system, which is really all geared around extracting confessions. And I think one of the reasons why we haven't seen this case resolved is because Yang Hengjun has been quite resolute in refusing to, to confess to any crimes. He continues to say, I haven't done anything wrong.
So he was arrested 3 years ago. It's the third anniversary now. So where is he in terms of the Chinese system? You say he's had a one-day trial. Has he been sentenced yet?
No, not yet. And we were expecting that he would be sentenced this month. That has now been delayed for another 3 months. It seems like, the Chinese authorities are really stringing this case along. I'm quite concerned that, Yang Hengjun is basically being used, somewhat as a, tool of hostage diplomacy by the Chinese government in order to try and extract, potentially some kind of, promises or benefits from the Australian government.
So are you optimistic at all then, Elaine, that by highlighting his case as you are, that his situation and his health will improve?
Well, I think that we need to highlight, this case because, putting a spotlight on his case is the only way that we can make, people aware of exactly what is happening to him. The Chinese authorities have bent over backwards to prevent his access to lawyers, to friends, to families, to, basic communications, rights that all prisoners should have. And I think, the fact that he has gone to these lengths to put this message out, that he's being treated like dirt, that he's being tortured, we absolutely should be, supporting him and calling on the Australian government to do everything they can to persuade the Chinese government to release Yang Hengjun once and for all. And we know it can happen because, obviously in the case of the two Canadians, they were released in recent months.
He isn't the only Australian being held in China, is he?
No, sadly not. Chung Lei is another one who is being arbitrarily detained. And, again, there's very little information coming out about how she has been treated. But, we remain very concerned about her fate. And there are other Australians, in Chinese prisons. But these two cases seem to be, particularly political. And so we are concerned that, under international law, they're being arbitrarily detained. And so the Chinese government should be, immediately and unconditionally releasing these people and allowing them to return to Australia.
Elaine Pearson, thank you.